basically the three main areas that we're going to take a look at today are funding possibilities, whether it be directly from your school district, or from the outer world outside of those two areas. So I don't imagine that this is going to take too long. And I also want to, since I am recording this, I want to make sure to keep it kind of short and sweet so that people in the future can kind of skim through it fairly quick and easy. So quick introduction. We're going to be doing our 8th cohort this summer. So far we've done around 100 educators have gone through the program. So we're right at that century mark. So that's really cool that over the course of the last 8 years, we've had so many people that have been able to go through this program. And it's also kind of a sign of the longevity is to, it's kind of a root of my motivation to be able to keep going with it. COVID really had us down for a couple of years, but we were able to kind of rally. And last year we did put together our 7th cohort after a couple of years hiatus due to COVID. So we've also had 6 people that have gone on repeat trips. So that's another sign of kind of positive reinforcement that you have people that will go through it and then they come back for more. I believe that this is correct. 8 US states and 2 countries represented. And then when I say educators, that's fairly broad. We try to kind of include anybody that is within the public or private school system. And that includes bus drivers, counselors, teachers, principals, classified staff. We've had a couple of school board members, district administrators, and then children and partners of educators as well. So that's kind of the scope of the program. And then we have S4E and Blanca are pictured in the top there. They're kind of the heart and soul of the program as far as Guatemala goes, because the whole idea is that being in a cultural immersion, that once you set foot in Guatemala, you're kind of immersed in Guatemalan culture. And so I try to kind of, I'm there, but I try to make it so I can kind of take a back seat to what they're doing once everybody arrives. So other than that, jumping right in here, we do have some PTO organizations, parent organizations that have helped people in the past. So depending on where you're located, that is a possibility. It doesn't hurt to ask. I did have one participant, this was maybe, I want to say it was like 3 years ago, something like that, who was able to do a GoFundMe. So it's not something that would be my #1 option, but those types of things, those crowdsourcing type avenues are always possibilities. And as you can see, she was able to get, it looks like she pretty much got her goal there. I think she had to put down $300 and then she was able to get the rest of it through this GoFundMe. If it's started by a parent, sometimes that might even be more powerful. That say like, my kid had this teacher, she's a great teacher, he's a great teacher, whatever. And they're trying to get to Guatemala for this program. And then we have also had different school budgets that have come through where, school budgets can be a little bit wacky sometimes, where all of a sudden you're sitting at February and then there's money that frees up for whatever reason. So it doesn't hurt to at least talk with your school-based admin about your plans and your hopes for going into a program like this, to be able to see if there's any possibilities as far as that goes. So from your school district, we have a few different possibilities as far as that goes. I'm based in Durango, and so thankfully here in Durango we have a very supportive educational foundation that is a separate organization. It's a charity, 503 C, I think is what it's classified as, organization, but they directly fund teacher grants and professional development. I was able to score a grant from them to be able to get like a Promethean board in my classroom. But I wouldn't doubt that they would probably fund something like this as well. Obviously, I'm not going to ask for it since it would be kind of a conflict of interest, but I would be surprised if there's not organizations. And I know when I was in Denver, similar, as well as when I was in Cherry Creek and different districts throughout the Colorado metro area in Denver. And I know there's similar stuff up in northern Colorado too. So depending on where you're at, it doesn't hurt to at least see if there's an educational foundation that works with your district that will provide teacher grants. That could possibly be a line of possibility. There's also often, depending on how your district is set up, there could be a professional development department at your district, and it just depends because school districts are set up so differently. But none of the districts that I've been in have been exclusively like, this is our PD department. It's always been associated with either like curriculum and instruction or that sort of thing. But I have had some participants that have been able to go directly to their PD department to be able to get some funding. And so that is a possibility as well. And then using an example of Thompson School District in Loveland, as well as Poudre School District in Fort Collins, Colorado, they did have, or they currently have, in the case of Thompson, an equity and diversity department. And thankfully, due to the efforts, especially of Dr. Maria Gabriel, who was in both Fort Collins and Poudre School District, as well as Thompson School District in Loveland, we're able to send small cohorts of educators in 2014 with Fort Collins Poudre School District, and then more recently in 2019 with Thompson out of Loveland. And so they did something throughout their district where it was kind of like within their district that they sent educators on the program. So, so especially if you have an equity and diversity department, that's, whether it's with it, like with Thompson or Poudre, or if you just want to talk to them and let them know what your intentions are, and they might be able to help you out or at least point you in the right direction. And then as far as nonprofits and community organizations, if you are in the, union realm of things, I know that a lot of people choose to do that for various reasons, whether it be for liability reasons or to protect, ourselves, or to be able to advocate for funding and salary and that sort of thing. But a lot of times there will be, whether at the state or the national level, and sometimes with the larger districts, like I think at Denver Public Schools, there was even at the district level, some funding availability through the educator associations or unions. And so I know that I did find at NEA, the National Education Association, they did have a bunch of educator grants and fellowships. So that is definitely a possibility. I just put in National Education Association educator grants. And then also there's this one in New Jersey that also provides funding at the state level. So that is, it's called the HIP Foundation. And so they have grant opportunities for New Jersey public school employees. And I don't even know if you need to be necessarily a member of the association. So that's something to look into as well, as far as that goes. And then we did have a principal at an elementary school, a Title I elementary school in San Diego, named Justin. Justin, really amazing guy, really learned a lot from him and really contributed a lot to our cohort. And he was able to put together a proposal to his, I think it was actually his professional development department, for like a leadership grant. So I'm happy to be able to send along a copy of that as far as kind of what it looked like, but I kind of screenshotted the front page of what that did look like, where he kind of said, like, given that this is what our school population is and how it's growing with not only Latinx, but also Guatemalan demographic groups, that this would be something that would benefit the community. And so kind of put together this proposal that was really cool, and was able to secure funding where they basically paid for his tuition as long as he covered the airfare. So that really helped out as far as that goes. And then finally, I just put in teacher grants. into a Google search, and that's, you know, always a possibility as well, as far as finding some, whether it be like crowdfunding. Like there's some organizations that you just kind of name what it is that you are trying to do, and then there's funders that will come in and will say, oh yeah, that seems like a good cause, I want to fund that. So so that's always a possibility, as well as far as finding some funding. But without further ado, I did, for the couple of people that we have here live, I did want to at least give you guys an opportunity to jump in if you have any specific questions. Then I'm happy to answer them. And I can see you, Lisa, but I can't hear you.
Hey,
There we
Steve.
go. Hi.
Hi. I don't know that I have any questions other than once I go through trying to find other budgeting, if there's money left over that I still owe, what's the best way to pay for that?
Yeah, so similar with the registration process, you'll just get a Square invoice. I just use Square, and you can just go through that. And that's also where, you know, worst case scenario, if you're not able to procure any type of funding or anything like that, that's what I like about Square, is they do allow for kind of like piece by piece, where if you want to do like a payment plan, especially since you're fairly early on in the process, that's always something that if you think that might be helpful, then I can kind of prepare that invoice sooner rather than later, so that you can do kind of monthly or whatever the case may be. It doesn't, with Square, you can do that as opposed to having to do it in one full swoop.
Okay. I had wanted to go last summer, but couldn't because I ended up taking a lot of grad classes. So, but for this summer, I've been saving, so I have money to pay for it now if I needed to. But when would a good deadline be for funding opportunities to say, oh, I've got this funding or I don't?
I think it says like a month before the departure date is when we're hoping to be able to get everything together, so we can start to, you know, take care of all of the expenses on our side. So yeah, I think that's a good kind of look for, as far as like right at about a month before we head out.
Okay. And the only other question I have is about plane tickets. I'd like to buy my plane tickets now while they're a little less expensive than they will be a month before we go.
Yeah.
Is there somewhere I could find a specific airport or a specific time you prefer people show up?
Yeah, and so what I can do, Lisa, is I
Mhm.
can put the calendar into the chat. Let me just do that right now. So it depends. So your next decision probably, Lisa, is to be able to decide whether or not you'd like to do a week or two before or a week or two after. And so that's an option if you'd like to, if you're able to. A lot of that's more of a time thing. So part of that is going to depend on whether you're able to do that, because people that can do a little bit of extra time, they really do get that much more out of it, as far as staying, because 2 weeks is great as far as the cultural piece, but language wise, you're going to see some definite growth with 4 hours one-on-one per day, plus your other immersion elements. But you're going to see a lot more if you're able to stay there for like 3 weeks or a month, as opposed to 2. So what I just shared in the chat, let me just go back to screen sharing here if I can, is the calendar of the trip for 2023. And so you can see, depending on if you do your week before, your week after, or the base program, you're going to want to try to schedule your arrival for July 2nd for the base program, and for departure for July 15th. But then again, that's also whether or not you're hoping to be able to go to TCAL, which I would really recommend. It's a great, it's kind of like this type thing. Yeah. So if that's the case, they're going to want to try to schedule your departure from TCAL on the 18th. So it kind of depends on those different elements. But hopefully this will give a better idea as far as the various ins and outs of everything.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. Gina, do you have any wonderings or?
Yeah, I've been receiving these emails for a while, and I got the email about this Zoom, so I said, I've been thinking about this and thinking about this. Let me jump on, but I hadn't gotten any emails about the actual trip. So my question was about what's the calendar? When's the departure date? So I'm curious, do folks ever show up late? Because I have to teach summer school through July 6th.
I got
So,
you.
I mean, I don't know if I would just try to plan for another year or.
Yeah, I mean, that would be a definite possibility. So based on what we currently have scheduled, you'd still be able to do a pretty good amount of the program components. And what we could do is, because like I said, we have Blanca and Sodi based out of Guatemala, that if you were to just stagger it by a week, and then, and that might actually be kind of cool, where you have even that much more of an immersive experience, where the stuff that you missed out of those first few days, you'd be able to recoup for that next week. And Blanca and Sodi would be able to kind of be there and be kind of helping you out and taking you through it. So in a way, I mean, it wouldn't be as much of the cohort experience, because typically we try to make it so it's anywhere between like 7 and 20 people to be able to kind of go through this and do some reflections together. Which, depending on when you arrive on the 6th, we do have a group reflection scheduled for the 6th. And we typically will also have one early on that second week too. But yeah, I think that definitely would be great for you to be able to at least do the second week and then come back on what we would have week 3 would be your week 2, especially since you have that commitment already. Otherwise, the hope is that we're going to be coming back each year, but we learned from COVID not to plan that far in advance, right?
Right. So can you send me the information about this trip, or is there a website I can go to that I can look back at the old email or something?
Yeah, so SpanishForEducators.org is the website.
Okay, yeah.
That would probably be your first stop. I don't know if you do Facebook, but there's also a Facebook page that I can put in the chat. And so either of those are probably going to be the best places to kind of start out with. So I did just put the Facebook link in there, and I can put the actual website in there as well. And so Facebook is probably more timely just because it gets updated fairly regularly. But if you look here, it's kind of having a hard time populating, but it does have like the Facebook feed is right there on the front portion of the website. So, and it's got some information about the 2023 trip. It's got information about registration, different things. We offer grad credits through Western Colorado University, which you can transfer to anywhere in the country. And so, yeah, as you kind of peruse through this, let me know. You can always reach out, email, call. I can put the email in here that you can reach out to me as well. And then we can just go from there.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
You bet, Gina. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate it. And if any other questions come up, please feel free to reach out and let me know.
Thanks,
See you
Steve.
guys. Have a
Bye.
good one.
You
Take
too.
care.
Bye.